Welcome to Chapter 12, Motivating Employees. These are the steps in which to achieve superior performance in the workplace. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to answer what motivation is and what's the motivation for studying motivation. What kinds of needs motivate employees? Is it a good reward? Is a good reward good enough? And how do other factors affect motivation? What's the best way to design jobs, adapt people to work, or work to people? What are the types of incentives that you could use to influence behavior, and how can you use compensation and other rewards to motivate people? So, what's motivation? It's a psychological process that arouses and directs goal-directed behavior. We have our personal factors, our contextual factors, and those filter into our motivation and engagement. So, why do people do the things that we do? It's simple. We're motivated to fulfill what we want and need. It's imperative that you as a manager understand the process of motivation if you're to guide employees in accomplishing whatever objectives that your organization has. So we can reward people in a couple of ways. Extrinsically is when you pay off a person, is the payoff a person receives from others for performing a particular task. It could be money, that you get, some kind of something that is tangible, a car, a watch, right? Intrinsic is satisfaction that you receive just from doing the task. You feel satisfied, you feel like you accomplished something, and you can see down here where you have an unfulfilled need. I'm going to try to zoom in. And is there a desire that's created to fulfill that need, food, safety, recognition, and how that filters into motivation, which is your search to satisfy that need. And from there, the behavior is what you choose in order to make sure that need is satisfied. And then your reward one of two ways. And then you'll provide feedback on whether the behavior worked and should be used again. And that'll then determine if you're then getting the same result over and over again. So Bethany's writing a paper for her management class. She already has a strong A. She only needs to get a C on the paper to keep her A. As she prepares the final version of her paper, she takes special care that the paper is well written, insightful, and error-free. Something that she can be proud of. What is Bethany experiencing? Is it an intrinsic reward, high equity, a belongingness to need, or a hygiene factor? If you said A, you're correct. It's an intrinsic reward. She just wants to, it's just the feel good of it. So why is it important? Why is motivation and motivating people important? You want to motivate people to join your organization. You need to instill in talented prospective workers the desire to come and work for you and your team. You want people to stay with your organization, whether you're in a good economic times or bad. You always want to be able to retain good people. You don't want people to leave. Show up for work at your organization. Of course, absenteeism and lateness are tremendous problems, and they are very costly. So yes, you want to motivate people to show up on time, to show up every day that they're scheduled. You want to motivate people to be engaged while at your organization. Engaged employees produce higher quality work and better customer service. And then, of course, you want people to do extra for your organization. You really do hope that employees will perform extra tasks above and beyond their call of duty. That's what's called being a good citizen in an organization. So there's 4 major perspectives that we look at, and each of these perspectives will be described in greater detail in the chapter. Content, process, job design, and reinforcement. I just want you to think about something. Think about Google, the company Google. Would you be motivated to go to work every day at Google? There's a video that shows how Google's work campus motivates employees to come in and to be inspired to do the work they do. So content perspectives, there's theories that emphasize the needs that motivate people. In addition to McGregor's theory X and theory Y that you read in chapter 2, content perspectives include 4 theories. Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, McClelland's acquired needs theory, Deci and Ryan's self-determination theory, Hertzberg's two-factor theory. Under needs, we have some deficiencies that are either physiological or psychological that arouse our behavior. And content theorists have the question of what kind of needs motivate employees in the workplace. So under Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we've gone over before, it proposes there's 5 needs ranging from basic to highest level. And Abraham Maslow suggested that these needs are never completely satisfied. That our actions are aimed at fulfilling the deprived needs, the needs that remain unsatisfied at any point in time. And so once you have achieved safety or security, which is the second most basic need, you will then need or have this feeling that you need to fulfill the third most basic need, which is love or belongingness. So although it remains popular among managers, research does not clearly support Maslow's theory. It's still the importance of Maslow's contribution is that he showed that workers have needs beyond that of just earning a paycheck. To the extent that the organization allows, managers should first try to meet the employees' level 1 and level 2 needs. Of course, so that employees won't be preoccupied with them. It's like, just cover those 2 basic ones at least. Then, however, they need to give employees a chance to fulfill their higher level needs in ways that so also advance them and their goals in the organization. And so you take care of those basic needs, and then when those 2 basic needs are taken care of, it opens someone up to then pursue their other needs. David McClelland was a well-known psychologist, and he investigated the needs for affiliation and power. And he believed that we're not born with our needs, but rather we learn them from the culture, from our life experiences. And managers are encouraged to recognize 3 needs in themselves and others, and to attempt to create work environments that are responsive to them. So the 3 needs, one of which tends to be dominant in each of us, are listed here. We have achievement, which is the desire to achieve excellence in challenging tasks. Affiliation was the desire for friendly and warm relationships. And then power, which is the desire to influence or control others. And you can apply acquired needs theory by appealing to the preferences associated with each need that you when you set goals, provide feedback, assign tasks, and design the job itself. If you see in these little bubbles, you have a well-balanced individual, and the focus is on achievement, affiliation, and power. They're all equal size. When you have a person who's a control freak, right, their achievement is normal, but affiliation is small, and their power is large. Their desire to influence or control others as a control freak. Now, Patty prefers working alone. She's comfortable taking moderate risk and feels good when accomplishing a goal. What does she have? Is she a high need for achievement, for affiliation, for power, or does she have a low need for achievement? She prefers working alone. She's comfortable taking moderate risk. She feels good when accomplishing a goal. She's A. She has a high need for achievement. Now, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan are both psychologists at University of Rochester, and they came up with the self-determination theory that focused primarily on the intrinsic motivation and rewards, that feeling of independence, and rather than the extrinsic motivation such as money or fame or some kind of gift. Intrinsic motivation is longer lasting than extrinsic, and it has more positive impact on task performance, according to the 2 psychologists. The 3 innate needs are on the next slide. Competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Competence is where people feel qualified, knowledgeable, and capable of completing a goal or task. You can provide tangible resources, contacts, and coaching to improve a person's competence, making sure that they have the knowledge and information they need to perform their jobs. So let me give you an example. At Hindustan Unilever, right? Unilever for short, senior managers are expected to spend 30% to 40% of their time in grooming people below them. Executives also change roles every 2 or 3 years, so they are always learning different aspects of the business. That's interesting. Talking about expansion of your knowledge and capabilities and skills. Wow. It also should help keep you from being bored or feeling like, oh, I'm doing the same thing. Like you get to have something new every few years. Autonomy is where you need to feel that you have some freedom and discretion to determine what you can do and how you go about doing it. And to help enhance that, as a manager, you can develop trust with your employees and empower them by delegating meaningful tasks. Best Buy there's an example from Best Buy where their corporate employees work in what's called a ROW, a results-only work environment, and that means that no one in the company cares where, when, or how you work, only what you accomplish. They don't care just get the job done, and they're just focused on results. Under relatedness, this is the people's need to feel a sense of belonging or attachment to others, and there's some companies such as Nugget Market, which is in Sacramento, California, and they use a camaraderie to foster relatedness. And their reporter, Jeremy McCarthy, he reported being at an Apple store where every employee in the store broke into a standing ovation for 10 minutes to celebrate the transfer of one of their colleagues to a new store. So for 10 whole minutes, the team was just clapping for this person. And then she goes on that for the relatedness score, it must have been through the roof as they all lined up to give her a hug and cheer her on for her next role. Like, how amazing is that? But for some people, they have a low sense of like they're fine. But for a lot of us, we do really want to belong. It's our innate need, our desire to belong to something, to someone. And if you have a high need for that, imagine that 10 whole minutes. Oh my goodness. 2 minutes, I would have been like shocked. But 10 minutes, I don't know, I probably would have burst out in tears. Standing ovation, and everyone comes and gives me a hug and cheers me on. So the two-factor theory that Herzberg developed proposes that work satisfaction and dissatisfaction come about from two different factors. That work satisfaction is from so-called motivating factors, and work dissatisfaction are from so-called hygiene factors. And so hygiene factors are associated with the job context in which we work. And motivating factors dealing with job satisfaction affects our job content or the rewards of work performance. And figure 12.5, and I'm going to expand so you guys can see it closer, shows you these motivating factors and whether or not there's satisfaction or not, the level of dissatisfaction, and then the hygiene factors. And here we see that there will always be some employees who dislike their jobs. It's just a given. But the basic lesson that Herzberg's research shows is that you should first eliminate dissatisfaction, which are those hygiene factors, right? So what could possibly cause dissatisfaction in your people? Well, the level of pay and security, their working conditions, company policies, supervisors, whatever those dissatisfying factors are, that's what you should eliminate first. Make them right. Making sure that working conditions and the like are reasonable. You should then concentrate on spurring motivation by providing opportunities for achievement and responsibility and recognition and personal growth. Those are the motivating factors. So positive hygiene factors include allowing pets at work. I've seen that. I saw pictures of that. I thought it was amazing. it's, yeah, I just wonder, like, like when I think about my dog, like he has to have his potty breaks like every 2 hours. And I wonder how a company would feel about that. But of course, it's a given. But obviously, it's an understanding that we have this connection with our pets and they bring us so much joy and satisfaction. Something else, some other factors are when you offer video game arcades, fitness classes, intramural sports like soccer and volleyball, providing a library of free movies and magazines and books. Now, if you work at Google, you could also have a college reimbursement plan, legal aid, and travel assistance. And if you pass away, the company will pay your family half of your salary for 10 years. For 10 years. That is how you get your employees engaged and motivated, inspired, and they're like, you know what? Oh my goodness. I can then just focus on what I love, right? So let's look at a comparison of content theories, and let me reduce this so we can see. And you can see acquired needs theory, which is McClelland, and self-determination theory, which is DC and Ryan. They focus only on the higher level needs. You see that Maslow and Hertzberg focus on both higher as well as lower level needs. Now, the process perspectives, the three process perspectives, we're going to go into detail on the slides, but they're concerned with the thought processes by which how people decide to act and how employees choose behavior to meet their needs. And those follow under equity or justice theory, expectancy theory, and goal setting theory. With equity theory, it was pioneered by psychologist J. Stacy Adams. And I know most of you guys are thinking about the shoes. And it's based on the idea that employees are motivated to see fairness in the rewards they expect for task performance and are motivated to resolve feelings of injustice. It literally is, it explains how people strive for that balance. They want fairness and justice in their social exchanges, or some kind of give and take relationship. And it's based on cognitive dissonance, right, that we talked about in chapter 11. The psychological discomfort that people experience when your cognitive attitude and incompatible behavior, that discomfort that it suggested motivates you to take action to maintain consistency between your beliefs and behavior. So when you think of it, when we're victimized by unfair social exchanges, you could be overcharged for having work done to your car. Your resulting cognitive dissonance prompts you to correct the situation, whether it's slightly changing your attitude or your behavior. So because you're overcharged for the repair of your car, you then say that shop's gonna get my worst rating on Yelp, right? Or at the extreme, you go way off the deep end and you commit some kind of sabotage or workplace violence. Please don't do that over a car repair. But people do it, right? So looking at figure 12.7, let me expand this. We look at our inputs and our outputs, and then the inputs and outputs of others. And you're looking at inputs, and that's what you think you're putting into the job, and that's what you perceive that you're giving as far as your time, effort, and experience and training, your intelligence, your status, so on and so forth. Your outputs or rewards is what you think you're getting from the job. And you may look at your pay and praise and recognition and promotions. Maybe you have a corner office with a view, or you have a private parking space, so on and so forth. When you compare, you're looking at the ratio of inputs versus and rewards of your inputs and rewards compared to those of others. And so under equity theory, it suggests that people compare the ratio of their own outcomes to inputs against someone else's. And when you compare that ratio of inputs and outputs, the rewards, right? Whether or not a coworker or even other people in a similar job, not even in your company, if they if you're looking at the two, and then you're going to make a judgment about fairness. You're like, you're comparing what you do and what you receive to what others do and what they receive, what you perceive that they do and receive. And so you either are going to perceive equity, and so you're satisfied with the ratio, and so you just maintain your behavior, or you're going to perceive there's inequity, and so you then grow to be resentful, and in light of that, you then change your behavior, right? Because you believe that there's inequity. So all of a sudden now, I'm not going to perform at the level that they're accustomed to, or I'm not going to do this. You're going to do something in order to express your disappointment and disgust. But once again, it's all based on perception. So some ways that you can try to reduce inequity. Here's some examples. They will reduce their inputs, right? Do less work, take long breaks, call in sick on Mondays, leave early on Fridays. You try to change your output to rewards you receive. You lobby for a raise. You start to steal company equipment and supplies. That's always a big one. You'll distort the inequity. You start to exaggerate how hard you work and complain you're not paid what you're worth. And as I always tell people, none of us really are. Right? You will change the object of your comparison. You may start to compare yourselves with another person instead of the person you were originally comparing yourself to. And then the last thing is you may leave the situation. You'll quit, transfer, or shift to another reference group just because of that. And that's some ways in which you go about trying to reduce it. There's some elements of justice theory that beginning around the late 1970s, you had some researchers in equity theory that decided to expand into the area called organizational justice. And it's concerned with the extent to which people perceive they're treated fairly at work. And there's 3 different components that have been identified: distributive, procedural, and interactional. And distributive says basically how fairly are rewards being given out. Procedural is looking at the process and how fair that process for handing out rewards is. And interactional is looking at how fairly you're being treated when rewards are being given out. Now, the 5 practical lessons from both theories. Your knowledge of equity and justice theories allow you to hear out and better understand employees' concerns. So being an employee yourself, you can motivate other workers by clearly understanding and communicating their opportunities to improve their situations. You can communicate reasonable expectations and make sure objective measures for rewards are well understood. And what's important is to understand that our perceptions are what count. It doesn't matter what you say, it's what someone perceives. So you have to make sure that people have a voice in the decisions that affect them, and that there's an appeals process that they can go through. And you have to understand that leader behavior matters. It's not doing as I say, not as I do. It's understanding that what you do is everything. And so what you do is what I'm going to do because you're the leader. And then understanding that a climate for justice makes a difference. Under expectancy theory, Victor Vroom introduced this theory, and he assumed that people have choices and will make the choice that promises us the greatest reward if we think we can get it. And so by this, we're motivated by how much we want something and how likely we think we could possibly get it. And that could lead to some criminal activity. So let me zoom in. So what determines how willing you as an employee are willing to work hard at task? And what helps determine that willingness will lead to the success of an organization? Well, Vroom says that you will do what you can do when you want to. Your motivation, according to this theory, involves the relationship between your effort, where you're exerting, right? You're putting something in, your performance, right? Or something as a task is being completed, and the desirability of the outcome. So it's recognition of some level. So you'll exert an effort in order to achieve, right? Which that's the expectancy. You're expecting something to achieve performance so that you can realize the realization is the instrumentality. What outcome will you receive? Whatever the outcome is. And based on that, there's the balance of how much do you want the outcome. And these relationships are affected by these three elements of expectancy, instrumentality, and balance. And there we go. So when we use expectancy theory to motivate employees, you're looking at these four things. What rewards do you value? What are the job objectives and the performance level you desire? Are the rewards linked to performance, and do you believe you will deliver the right rewards for the right performance? The principal problem with expectancy theory is that it's complex. So the underlying logic is understandable, and research seems to show that managers are not following its principles. When attempting to motivate employees, managers should ask these questions that I just mentioned above. As a manager, you need to get to know your employees and determine what rewards, what outcomes they value, such as pay raises or recognition. You need to clearly define performance objectives and determine what performance level or behavior you want so that you can tell your employees what they need to do in order to attain those rewards. If you want to reward high performers, of course, that's a given. So with that, employees must be aware that X level of performance within Y period of time will result in Z kinds of rewards. In a team context, however, research shows that it's best to use a combination of both individual and team-based rewards, right? And being that sometimes you feel slighted when the entire team is rewarded for something and you carried a lot of weight that maybe someone else on the team didn't. So when you do a combination of the two, the team can be rewarded for achieving this goal, and then individual rewards can be done for the stellar performance that individual players performed. Now, under the fourth level of believing that you'll deliver the right rewards for the right performance, your credibility is online here. This is key. Your employees must believe that you have the power, the ability, and the will to give them the rewards you promise for the performance you're asking for. If not, they're not going to perform, and they're not going to trust you, and that's a wrap for you. They're not going to do much more than what they have to. So you have to possess the power and the ability and the will, and for that they'll give you what you need because they're expecting something in return, right? So last year, Diana's boss promised her a big bonus if she met her goals at the end of the year. After Diana had exceeded her goals, she found her bonus was very small. Psh, what? So in the future, Diana's what will probably be what? Will her balance be low? Will her instrumentality be low? Will her expectancy be low? Or will her expectancy be high? If you said B, instrumentality, and it will be low, you're correct. Instrumentality is the expectation that successful performance of the task will lead to the desired outcome. I mean, she's not coming with trying to exceed her goals. At most, she may try to meet them. At most. But she's not going to try to exceed them. So goal setting theory suggests that employees can be motivated by goals that are specific and challenging, but they must also be achievable. And we've been considering the importance of goal setting since they were first introduced in chapter 5, if you remember. And according to psychologists Edwin Locke and Gary Latham that developed the theory, they believe that it's natural for people to set and strive for goals. However, the goal setting process is useful only if people understand and accept the goals. It has to be clearly articulated and it has to be accepted. So there's 4 motivational mechanisms that are tied to it that directs your attention, regulates the effort expended, increases your persistence, and fosters use of strategic and action plans. Those are the mechanisms that make it happen. Now, under practical considerations of goal setting, goals that are specific and difficult lead to higher performance than general goals like do your best or improve your performance. This is why it's essential to set specific, challenging goals. Goals such as sell as many cars as you can or be nicer to customers are way too vague. Instead, goals need to be specific. And usually that means they have to be quantitative, such as boost your revenues 25% or cut absenteeism by 10%. Those are specific. Certain conditions are necessary for goal setting to work. People must have the ability and resources needed to achieve the goal, and they need to be committed to the goal. And goals should be linked to action plans, and an action plan will outline the activities or tasks that need to be accomplished in order for someone to obtain a goal. They also remind us of what we should be working on. So both you as a college student as well as an organization are more likely to achieve your goals when you develop detailed action plans. Now, performance feedback and participation in deciding how to achieve goals are necessary but not sufficient for goal setting work. This is only possible when they lead employees to set and commit to a specific difficult goal, right? Now, when we look at motivation and the job design perspectives, job design is the division of our organization's work amongst the employees and the application of motivational theories to jobs to increase satisfaction as well as performance. And we use 2 techniques. One is fitting people to jobs, which is part of the scientific management theory. And the second is fitting jobs to people, which is part of enlargement or enrichment. Job enlargement consists of increasing the number of tasks in a job to increase variety and motivation. Job enrichment consists of building into a job such motivating factors such as recognition, advancement, responsibility, achievement, so on and so forth. So figure 12.9 shows you the job characteristics models, and there's 5 core job characteristics that blend into 3 psychological states, and then from there you have work outcomes. And this was developed by researchers J. Richard Hackman and Greg Oldham, and the model consists of the 5 core job characteristics that affect the 3 critical psychological states of an employee that in turn affect the work outcomes, which is the employee's motivation, performance, and satisfaction. And it can be seen that several factors actually lead into the work outcomes and productivity of employees, right? You see how those funnel in. And then we have our contingency factors that are the degree to which you want personal and psychological development. And those fall into our knowledge and skill set, our desire for personal growth, and the context satisfactions. Now, how do we go about reinforcing? And reinforcement theory suggests that behavior with positive consequences tends to be repeated, whereas behavior with negative consequences tend to not be repeated unless someone's just, hard-headed. Reinforcement evades the issue of people's needs and thinking process in relation to motivation. And when the authors had talked about the need-based and process perspectives. Instead, with reinforcement, Edward Thorndike and B.F. Skinner, that pioneered this perspective, they're more concerned with how the consequences of a behavior affect that behavior in the future. So Skinner was the father of operant conditioning, and that's the process of controlling behavior by manipulating its consequences. Operant conditioning rests on his law of effect, which says that behavior with favorable consequences tends to be repeated, while behavior with unfavorable consequences tends to disappear. You see, it says tends to, not all the time. And so use of reinforcement theory to change human behavior is what we call behavior modification. There are 4 types of reinforcement: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. Reinforcement is anything that causes a given behavior to be repeated or inhibited, whether it's praising a child for cleaning their room or scolding them for leaving their bike in the driveway. Here we look at what the manager wants, what the employee does, the manager's reinforcement that they choose, and what the resulting behavior of the employee is. If you see, we want improved employee performance to work faster. So the employee does one of 2 things. Either they improve their performance or they don't. If they improve their performance, here's how we reinforce that. Through positive reinforcement, we can reward the employee for their improvement by giving them a raise. On the flip side, if they improve their employee performance, but we avoid employee reprimand, so we tell them, okay, now because you've improved, I'm not going to nag you any further. Well, what results in the behavior? So if I offer a raise or promotion for their performance improving, it usually will increase the chances that the behavior will be repeated, right? They'll keep up that faster pace. The same is true with the negative reinforcement. By me no longer nagging them about their performance, it'll increase the chance that the behavior will be repeated. They'll continue working at that faster pace to keep me off their back. However, if I want them to improve their performance and they don't improve, here are the 2 reinforcers that I can use. Extinction, which means that I withhold rewards, they don't get praise, they don't get a raise, and they don't get a promotion. Or I can punish them by docking their pay, right? That's one form of discipline I can give. When I dock their pay, the resulting behavior from the employee will be that most likely they will reduce repeating that behavior. They'll probably try to work a little bit faster from now on so that they're not punished again. If I withhold rewards, no praise, no raise, no promotion, it too will reduce the chances that the behavior will be repeated. Because in their mind, they're saying, I'll have to work faster in order to receive praise or raise. Can you see how different types of reinforcement can lead to the same resulting behavior? Very interesting, huh? So, how do we go about using reinforcement to motivate employees? Under positive reinforcement, we reward only desirable behavior and make sure that we do so as soon as possible, and making clear that what behavior is desired and the different rewards that we offer, and how we go about recognizing the individual differences. Under punishment, only punish undesirable behavior and making sure that these actions are done so as soon as possible. Don't delay those punishments. You can't punish someone from something they did 2 months ago or 2 years ago. You have to make sure that you're clear about what behavior is desired, and making sure that when you punish someone, you do so in private. That is not something that you do in front of other employees. And making sure that you combine punishment along with positive reinforcement. Now, these are some of the guidelines for these 2 types of reinforcement. Why would we want to give punishment as soon as possible? I mean, it's given. No one wants to be punished for something they don't. We forget. You're going to punish me something from months ago or years ago? Come on. Punishment needs to take place within 1 week, 2 weeks tops. Like, you're really pushing it with the 2 weeks. And so why would we want to administer it in private? It's simple. We're not here to take people's dignity. It's not about to shame someone and to humiliate them. There's a sense of privacy that needs to come with that. If not, you can actually end up with the wrong kind of behavior output after that. Now, when a manager stops nagging you, is the manager using positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment, or intrinsic motivation? If you said B, negative reinforcement, you are correct. So let me narrow this down because we're no longer using the graph. Using compensation, non-monetary incentives, and other rewards to motivate. Compensation always means monetary rewards. There's some money tied to it. Non-monetary incentives could be work-life balance, finding meaning in work, a positive work environment. Most people are paid an hourly wage or weekly or monthly salary, and both of these are easy for organizations to administer, of course, but by itself, a wage or a salary gives an employee little incentive to work hard. Incentive compensation plans try to do so, although there's no single plan that will boost the performance of all employees. Matter of fact, the Wall Street Journal did analysis and found that none of the 2015's highest paid CEOs ran one of the 10 best performing companies. So that says something. Only 3 of those executives headed a firm ranked among the top 10% in total shareholder return. It tells you it can't just be about the money. You have to have some kind of non-monetary incentives combined. So let's look at some of the popular incentive compensation plans. In the picture, you see pizza chef Tony Gimignani. I'm about to butcher his name. He merges motivation and compensation by owning and managing his own business. And the question is what factors or incentives motivate you to work hard? In accordance with most of the theories of motivation that we've talked about earlier, for incentive plans to work, certain criteria are advisable. Rewards must be linked to performance and they must be measurable. They must satisfy individual needs and be agreed on by both the manager and the employees. They must be believable and achievable, right? If I don't think it's going to happen, I'm not going to try. And if I don't think I can actually achieve it, I'm not going to try. And so when we look at these on this slide, pay for performance is also known as merit pay. It's pay for performance basis, pay on your results. Piece rate is when you're paid according to how much output you produce. Sales commission is what sales reps are usually paid, a percentage of the earnings the company made from a sale. Bonuses are cash rewards that are given to you for when you achieve specific performance objectives. Profit sharings, when there's a distribution to employees of a percentage of the company's profits. Gain sharing is when there's a distribution of savings or gains to groups of employees who reduce cost and increase measurable productivity. So you share in the gain that the company achieved. Stock options is the right to buy stock at a future date for a discounted price. And pay for knowledge is where employee pay is tied to the number of job relevant skills or academic degrees that you earn. Now, Earl's department at Pencil Chicken Inc. employees get money based on how much the department has been able to save in cost. What is this example of? What kind of compensation plan? Pay for performance, pay for knowledge, bonus, or gain sharing. The employees get money based on how much the department has been able to save in cost. If you said D, gain sharing, you're absolutely right. We're going to share in the gain, what we saved in cost. Some non-monetary ways of motivating work-life benefits. It could be flex time, vacations, sabbaticals, expanding skills, being able to shadow other employees, have your tuition reimbursed, well-being. Oh my goodness, the ability to combine the 5 elements of PERMA: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. Companies really need to offer employees a means to balancing their work and their personal lives, and helping employees to build skills through the shadowing and other training. Offering those sabbaticals to long-term employees so they can recharge. You find this a lot in universities, especially for tenured professors, and they could take off a year or 18 months, and they're paid, and they come back to their job. Like, it's really interesting. And flourishing represents the extent to which our lives contain perma. Now, meaningfulness, it's your sense of belonging to and serving something that you believe is bigger than you. And there's some suggestions. When you look at identifying activities you love doing, try to do more of these activities or find ways to build them into your work role. Something like, for instance, in Memphis, the employees at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, they embody this suggestion, and it's just really awesome. They truly enjoy participating in their marathon weekend because it raises money for the children being treated at the hospital. And one of the employees is a cancer survivor, and they said that each year it provided them with another opportunity to give back so that they could help countless other children who have anniversaries of their own for fighting, cancer. Finding ways to build your natural strengths into your personal and work life. Wanting to be more engaged with your school, your leisure activities, work. These are some things that you could sit back and create a list of your highest strengths, your weaknesses, which strengths you use on a daily basis, and find out what you can do to incorporate those strengths into schoolwork, your job work, and any leisure activities. Then the third is going out and helping someone, and research shows that people derive a sense of meaningfulness when we help others. It creates an upward spiral of positivity. Interesting enough, the company Salesforce.com, they encourage this by giving employees 6 paid days a year to volunteer. So 6 days out of the year, employees can go and volunteer and be paid their full pay, their full salary for those days. And in 2015, the employees at Salesforce.com had logged over 1 million volunteer hours. Is that not awesome? It does something. It just does something to your soul. So that is the end. These remaining slides, of course, are the appendices. If you have any questions, please email me, and I will be more than willing to help. Thank you guys for everything. Have a wonderful day.